कि इसमें भाषण तो था लेकिन बजट नहीं था। मैंने रेल का डिब्बा तो था लेकिन उसमें पैसेंजर नहीं था। तो इरादों का प्रकटीकरण तो है लेकिन कोई कार्य योजना नहीं।
All right, so those are some of the political reactions to the railway budget. Joining me now on the show, Dinesh Trivedi, former Railways Minister, Nalin Kohli, spokesperson of the BJP, Gaurav Gogoi, Lok Sabha MP for the Congress, Sudhindra Kulkarni, well-known writer and commentator, and Vivek Gupta, partner, BMR Advisors. Before I go across to the panel, I also spoke earlier with Mr. Adi Godrej, chairman of Godrej Industries and former president of CII. Sir, let me first start by getting your reaction to the railway budget. Has it delivered on the high expectations?
I thought it was a very good budget. I think the investment proposals are very good, and clearly there will be big progress in the railways over the next 5 years based on the proposals in the budget. I also thought that the proposals for improving passenger amenities were very good. I think it will be very useful for those who travel by rail to take the benefits, to get the benefits of the new proposals.
Mr. Godrej, any disappointments from the budget? Anything that you were hoping to hear? Anything that you felt was not in the right direction?
No, I don't think there were any disappointments. I think it's an investment-oriented budget, and they are going to do the investments through commercial borrowings from pension funds, etc. So I think that's a good move, and they will not be dipping into the finance ministry loans.
The Prime Minister, of course, has called it a watershed moment for the railways, but political reactions really saying there's been no fresh thinking. Can we safely say that it was a reform-oriented budget?
Yes, I think overall it's a very sensible way of going about it. It's a very business-like budget, business-like speech, and I think in the next couple of years it will make a big difference to the operations of the railways.
And of course, it's setting the stage for a big bang budget on Saturday as well. High expectations there from Finance Minister Jaitley.
Yes, I think looking at the details in the railway budget, I expect a very good general budget on Saturday, and I hope it is growth-oriented, and I expect it will lead to considerable improvement in India's financial position.
All right, Mr. Adi Godrej, many thanks for sharing your views on the railway budget. Let me now go straight across to the panel. Let me start by getting a reaction from Mr. Dinesh Trivedi. Mr. Trivedi, you've been there in that position and you know how difficult it is to really reform, bring about changes in an institution like the railways, which is reeling under tremendous financial stress as well as inefficiencies. Will you credit Suresh Prabhu with some fresh thinking out here? Do you think it has in any ways taken forward the reform process?
Well, if you look at the figures itself, I had initially reacted that is there any budget? Because if you look at the figures, that figures itself are so contradictory. And it just reflects a mind which is actually, otherwise I know Suresh Prabhu a good friend, but somehow I find a mind which is confused. Because even as per the minister's targeted operating ratio of almost 89% doesn't leave you much money, it leaves you only maybe 11% for any kind of improvement. Leave aside plowing back, even if you want to make sure that your assets which are depreciated, and if you want to renew that asset, there is no money even for renewing the asset. So your figure itself tells you that what you have done is just nothing but a bunch of confusion. Okay. And I'm not adding it. The figure itself tells, and my disappointment is I really expected, because Prabhu is a very capable person and a good friend of mine. So this budget leaves everything open. 50% of the resource You're talking about PPP, pension fund, insurance fund.
So are you saying too many announcements
bank.
but too little detail? You haven't been able to get the fine print on how he intends to implement it?
No,
is there a doubt there on that
I
8.5 lakh cost figure?
No, I have no doubt that you can't get it. Simple as that. If I had a doubt, I would have been happy. But the fact is, in 5 years, 8.5 crore with this little budgetary support from the government, and if you are saying that we are going to replow, we are going to make a lot of money, it cannot happen. Your figures itself says from last year to this year, your passenger revenue is going down, your cargo revenue is going down.
Right.
Where are you going to get your revenues
Mr. Trivedi,
from?
a quick word. I will go across to the others on the panel, but a quick word on how he believes he will be able to raise that money. He says that he will be talking to pension funds. He's already in touch with multilateral agencies like the World Bank, the ADB, and that proposals are already being worked out. Do you find that convincing enough?
You see, we are at the crossroad of 7th pay commission. That itself is going to take away 20,000-30,000 crore a year. I was listening to Mr. Godrej, who is a friend of mine. I just would like to ask him that whether his FICCI or CII member would at all consider investing any money in Indian Railways.
Okay, that's a good point I want to take forward to Nalin Kohli,
yeah,
sir.
Sure.
If you could just hold your thought, because it's a very, very important point that you've raised, and if I could get Nalin Kohli to answer that. Nalin, we've got a figure of 8.5 lakh crores that he's outlined. That's $137 billion to raise funds for a network that is clearly inefficient, where there's been clear under-investment. There is no scope and no blueprint there to tell us how that's going to change around. On top of that, as you just heard Mr. Trivedi say, the private sector on its own is not interested in investing in the railways.
Well, there are many points to make, Shweta. The first is the private sector in this country was looking for investment opportunities outside India just a few months ago, and certainly a few years ago. So I think, everything is always in a context. It cannot be out of a context. And if you ask honestly, if the way the country was going, why would anyone want to invest in anything? The railways would be the last priority for a private sector enterprise. There are multiple things I'd like to respond to. First, in all fairness, I think it becomes really unfair on the political panelists because they can't take a stand, and we do not have that kind of debate standards yet in a democracy that we can appreciate the work done by each other. We do it a little bit sometimes, but on budget days it's like deja vu. There will be someone who will say it's a visionless budget, someone will say, like Mr. Trivedi has put it out there, is it a budget? Things like that, because after all, in our political
let me just spin that around, Nalin, and ask Mr. Trivedi, a former railway minister.
Now let's go one by one.
Nalin, I'll come back to you. I'll take your point to Mr. Trivedi, because Mr. Trivedi, is there anything you would like to compliment Suresh Prabhu for today? Perhaps not announcing new trains, because he himself said that 80% of the time of the budget speech actually went in just announcing new trains. Would you at least compliment him for that? That's a clear departure from the norm. Any one compliment you'd like to give him today?
Let me tell you one. See, railway is in a business of providing services to the people of this country. If I am in the business of an airline and I said I don't want to start any routes, then why I'm in that business? And this, I'm using the term business, actually it is the obligation of the government. In short, I must tell you, the political system has not understood the potentiality of Indian railways, how robust it is, how it is going to add 2.5% to the GDP. My question is,
okay,
I am paying to really talk about. I just complete.
Is there one compliment you have for Suresh Prabhu today? Because that's a point that Nalin Kohli raised on. Is there any one compliment you would like to give him today?
I really wish I could give some comment.
Okay, I've got your answer there.
I was looking for areas.
And just to take forward the point on new trains, he's clarified there that it's not that we will not be announcing new trains, but it's just that he decided to keep it away from the speech just because most of the time there actually went in just making those announcements. Nalin Kohli, go ahead and finish your point. I know I interrupted you there. Go ahead.
May I just give my initial comments on the budget itself? Yeah. See, I just want to bring 4 or 5 points in here. First of all, I think the fact of the matter is it's realist. This budget speaks of three components, and that's important. It talks of a medium-term strategy. It talks of a white paper which has been presented late. There is the budget itself, and it talks of a vision for 2030. So it's basically directional. It's realistic also to acknowledge that these are the things we need to do. In fact, it's a sad commentary on where we brought the railways to. That, after almost 70 years,
Nalin,
we are talking about the basic passenger amenities that should have been provided 30 or maybe 40
How
years
will the BJP raise
But that's a
8.5
different
lakh crore rupees that it's talking about?
I'm making one sentence. I'm not going in detail. One sentence. Let's now go to 8.5 lakhs. That's the next point I was raising myself.
Right.
I was raising it. I'll give you a counter argument that so far almost 1 lakh crores has come due to the auction of the coal blocks. By that standards, almost 10 or maybe 15 lakh crores can be expected. So basically,
are you saying Mr. Jaitley will be obliging Mr. Suresh Prabhu with that money? I really have my doubts there.
$37-40 billion.
Nalin, he said it's coming out of the gross budget
by any standards. Because we draw ourselves down, we feel these are huge figures, it can be done. When the railway minister, my last sentence, when the railway minister has charted out something with a 5-year vision, you hold him accountable. When he finishes his term, you can then see whether he's achieved it or not. Before the baby is fully delivered, you can't really speak of the whole trajectory of the life ahead.
Gaurav Gogoi, the point that Nalin is making there is that it's a blueprint, it's a vision, and you cannot really criticize it on day one. He's just put out that vision, give him time, he will deliver.
So I'll make 3 quick points here, Shweta. First of all, BJP has mastered the art of shifting the goalposts. They come and inaugurate their budget and their government with big words like FDI and bullet trains, and then a year later it becomes Wi-Fi and bed linen, and now Nalin is trying to shift the goalpost and say, give us 5 years' time. This is the art mastered by the Prime Minister, and we saw evident in the Railway Minister's speech himself today. Secondly, if you study railway projects and railway departments in the whole world, and you see in those countries where Railways Ministry is performing effectively, you would see that the role of the government is large. 70% of the railway annual budget comes from the government itself, if you do a cursory study of railway budgets across the world. But what did we see here today? We saw that the government budgetary support is only 40,000 crores, and the rest, around close to 50 to 55,000 crores, is being dependent upon the private sector and the external sector. Now here lies in 2 main traps. If you depend too much on market borrowings and loan, then you are just pushing the future generation into a huge debt trap.
Okay.
Secondly, if you are dependent so much upon the private sector will not fulfill the social obligations of the railway department, which is to connect the remote and isolated areas such as those in Jammu and Northeast India. I don't think the private sector will venture into an area where there's no commercial viability.
Let me take that point forward to Sudhindra Kulkarni and Vivek Gupta. Sudhindra Kulkarni, I have to ask you a very pointed question on the fact that this has been a very customer-friendly budget, a passenger-oriented budget. The fact that he's actually refrained from raising passenger fares may be seen as a positive by the people, but it's actually a populist move which will further send the railway's financial position tumbling. Because on one hand, you're raising freight rates and you're subsidizing passenger rates by raising freight. But what happens when you raise freights? You make it more and more uncompetitive, the railways, when you're losing market share already to the road sector.
See, this is a very good budget that Suresh Prabhu has presented. Let's get some basic facts about the crisis before Indian Railways. One is that it is severely resource crunched. Internal generation of resources is not the way to modernize and expand railways. The central government cannot provide budgetary support beyond a certain limit, whether it's a Congress government or a BJP government. And therefore, innovative resource mobilization is the only way out.
Right.
There is broad agreement, whether it is Mamata Banerjee or Trivedi ji, that Indian Railways need something to the extent of 8.5 lakh crore rupees.
While that is all right, should you not use
listen
this
to this one point.
Mr. Kulkarni, should you have not used... Should he have not used this opportunity in the year one of the government, a majority government, when he doesn't need to toe the populist line, to actually take some bold moves, like maybe even hiking passenger fares? Why hike freight
you are absolutely mistaken. You are absolutely mistaken. Hiking passenger fares will not yield even 5% of what the railways need. 8.5 lakh crores is the requirement for the next 5 years.
Vivek Gupta, partner BMR Advisors,
last year invested 8.5 lakh crores in just 1 year.
Okay, let me take that point forward to Vivek
between
Gupta.
India and China.
This proves my point that the government needs to step up its investment.
Okay, I'm just going to get a business perspective there. Vivek Gupta, partner BMR Advisors, we've got this point going now that he's put out a very, very ambitious figure of 8.5 lakh crore rupees, $137 billion to be invested in the railways over the next 5 years. Is it too ambitious? Can his plans actually fructify?
See, the first step that a good CEO has to take, and that is what Mr. Prabhu has done, is to outline a vision. So for the first time in the rail budget, we have a definite vision. A vision to recognize that the vicious cycle of underinvestment must go away. A vision to recognize that external funding needs to be raised, whether it's debt funding or funding from multilateral agencies. So we are in a position where the vision and the direction is before us. What one would have certainly liked to see is a more concrete exposition of the fact as to how that vision will translate into reality. The fact of the matter is that as the CEO of the railways, there are a number of options available before the railway minister, and one would hope to see that in weeks and months to come, that for raising 8.5 lakh crores, there are various pockets of value available within the railways to be effectively monetized, while at the same time keeping the societal need for railways as a social service alive. So what I like about the budget is the fact that clearly a good direction, a proper vision, which a normal CEO should do, has been done, much like what would be done in the corporate world. What now one needs to hear over the next weeks and months, and I don't say over years, over the next weeks and months.
Right, Vivek, raising 8.5 lakh crore rupees is not going to be an easy task, and that's why the
models
question mark on walking the talk, you know.
Absolutely not. So it's not going to be an easy task, but there are pockets of value available within the railways. I would have liked, for example, to see today when you don't hike passenger fares, probably you're not doing such a bad thing because you have the oil price decline to cushion it.
Right.
If there was some directional understanding that we will hike passenger fares in a manner which is linked to oil price, that would have helped. If my take is, if the government makes the right noises about running various pockets of the railways in a commercial manner, then with the India story going,
right,
there is enough and more investment available out there for various projects of the government to be financed.
Okay.
What we haven't heard is a concrete exposition of those ideas, and that is what one would hope to see in the next weeks and months.
I'll give the last word there to Dinesh Trivedi. Mr. Trivedi, you've just heard the industry, you've heard an overall reaction coming in. The vision seems good. As a CEO, he's done the task of laying out his entire vision for the railways. We cannot, at this stage, say that he's not going to achieve it. Let's give him that little time, but overall, a good budget that brings out that vision on how he intends to turn around the railways financially, because that remains the critical bit.
Well, I can only tell you, all this industrialists, none of them are going to put a penny on Indian Railways. I bet you that. It's very nice for them to talk about because they have no choice, but they have to talk. I can tell you in conclusion, without the government total support of investment, please understand, Indian Railways is an investment. To bear fruit, you have to invest. But if you think it's an expenditure, it will never bear fruit. Indian Railways, like Kamdhenu cow, it can look after the health of India, but you have not understood the potential and the strength of Indian Railways, and you think internal generation and all those things, and it is like a corporate sector is going to give you a lot of profit. It will give you indirect profit. Swiss Railway also runs in losses, but it gives you total indirect profit to the country and less understand the Indian Railways. We have not understood the strength of Indian Railways.
Right, and perhaps that's something that Suresh Prabhu is intending to do by laying out that vision, saying that he needs to unlock that strength of the Indian Railways, make sure that he's able to monetize some of the assets, turn it around, raise funds from external sources, because he did not mince words by saying that yes, from internal sources, from the government support, from the gross budgetary support, he cannot turn around the railways. Will he be able to achieve what he's outlined today is something we'll have to wait and see. But for now, at least, it's been a budget that has given a lot to passengers and customers in terms of new initiatives that have been announced. Thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us and sharing your views. But that's a wrap here from me on the show. Plenty more continues on NDTV.